Now I can just lay back. Vico's just getting refreshes for me, getting all the mats. He's just doing everything. He's literally the best player.
What is up, everyone? It's your boy 112K, and I am in the lobby with the one and only Flixi. How you doing today, bro?
Yeah, I'm doing great.
Good to be talking with you. Let's jump into it. You are playing with Vico now, and you guys have been lighting up Major 3. You guys have been one of the better teams in EU so far this season. Talk to me about what it's been like playing with Vico for the first time.
Playing with Vico is like so much fun. Like before I played with Vico, I always, like the 2 seasons before I played with Giorno, so I was like kind of the fragger and Giorno was like yelling, but now I can just lay back. Vico's just getting refreshes for me, getting all the mats. He's just doing everything. He's literally the best player.
When you look at how you guys play, you're both super aggressive. You guys will fight anybody in the lobby. Have you ever had like this much confidence in a teammate when, you know, fighting before?
Before I played with Vico, I've never had that much confidence in my teammate. Every time we get in a fight, I know if I'm low or something, I can just heal. Vico's just the best fighter this season, especially this season. He's primed up, and I think it's even better for him because he's talking German now. Last season he talked English, and in German comms he's just playing way more confident. He doesn't need to think about anything.
Talk to me about the preparation for semis and grands. How are you going to make sure that you are going to be in the best position possible come grand finals?
For semifinals, I'm pretty confident. I feel like we can just do what we did in Cash Cup finals. What our goal is for every game is to get the forecast tower early on, try to get as much search as possible, and then go for a bunker, and then we can just try and win the game. So I feel pretty confident for semifinals, and I think we easily can win a game.
Is there anything about your playstyle right now that you feel like you need to change going into grand finals and semifinals?
Like right now in Cash Cups, search is pretty low, so we don't need that much damage, and we can do our things how we do it right now. But in Grands, we're gonna need to play more congested sides, so we see more players, get more search, and we need to change our game plan a bit.
It's interesting you mentioned Surge, right? Because I feel like that was an area you and Janice struggled in the past. What made you decide to stick with Reckless Railways, even though, you know, Surge can be so hard to get from there?
At the start of the season, me and my coach, we looked for a different spot, but then, I didn't not place because of my spot, I placed because I played the spot wrong. So I feel like it's not about the spot, it's about me. And I still think Reckless isn't the easiest spot to get search from, but I feel like we can definitely cook something up and get a good strategy.
Yeah, you put in that work, and it's paying off. This has been In the Lobby with Flixi. It's been an absolute pleasure, man. See you in the next one.
See you.
welcome to day 2 of the FNCS Major 3 semi-finals. I'm Frankie Ward, and the action we saw yesterday was blazing hot, so I can't wait for even more Fortnite. And joining me to discuss the action is, of course, Miniminer and 11-2K. We couldn't do this show without them. 11-2K, talk me through the look today. We're going very classic. It looks like you're paying tribute, actually, to Carter.
So actually what I did is I looked back to see what I wore last season, and I'm just matching that day for day. Last season, day 1, white top, day 2, black top. So today, black top, you know, to match last season, yeah.
So grey top tomorrow.
I need to check what I did last season for tomorrow, and then you'll see tomorrow.
It was so memorable. And Miniminer, I was admiring your red top earlier. It's just like you got the memo. I was going to be wearing some red. You're wearing red.
Yeah, we'll go with that if that's the narrative you want to go with. I just found some color, you know. Usually it's just either a black or white or grey. You know, I'm like Levin. I like to keep it simple, but I thought, you know what? Let's mix it up a little bit here. Let's go for a bit of dark red.
We've really given the people what they want today. Yeah. Top banter. I'm sure the chat is absolutely loving it. You know what I'm loving? I'm loving the fact that we're getting the 30 best duos from the lower bracket yesterday joining us in the upper bracket today. Starting with Nebs and Kadiro Miniminer, because they had a fantastic day yesterday.
Yeah, they did. Of course, they had an amazing day yesterday, coming out on top in that lower bracket. They had 2 victory royales, and they just played really well overall. They just seemed to be a different class to the rest of the lobby. From watching back some of their games as well, they just played height really well. They were able to take advantage of those games that they did make it to endgame. Of course, landing at Grim Gate as well. We saw there just winning off spawn more often than not, and today they are actually uncontested at Grim Gate. So I do expect this team to have a really good day today, because Nebs is one of those players, Levin, that can just literally pull anything out of the hat at a moment's notice.
Absolutely. I think when you look at their success in the lower bracket yesterday, it came down to them being able to be super aggressive and really get into a good flow there. And if they can bring that to the lobby today, which they'll need to be successful, from what we saw yesterday, like to really survive in some of these mid games of how high the surge thresholds have been, they're gonna have to be super aggressive, and they definitely can do that. But again, it's about bringing it in this lobby, coming out of Grim Gate. It's not the easiest spot in the world to land at this season, so I reckon they'll do well today.
I feel like it would be rude to talk about Kadiro, not talk about his ex-duo partner, Kiro, who's now teamed up with Mappy, and they've also made it out the lower bracket 11, but they haven't necessarily had such a great major so far.
Yeah, it's been a bit rocky for them at times. I think when you look at when they came together last season, it was a duo that not many people had high expectations of instantly, but they quickly changed that by performing fantastically. And then going into grand finals, everyone's expected them to top 10. Everyone thought they were going to do really well. They come 21st, and it really just felt Miniminer like this was a team that had a honeymoon period and carried that through the season, and it sort of wore off, and so they're not at that same level. The key to their success a lot of the time last season was them just having a very solid game plan that allowed them to get to end games consistently, and from there those guys would cook and be super aggressive together in getting refreshes. They need to do that again today.
Yeah, they definitely do. I mean, even last season, just before grand finals, they had a 1st place in the Duo Cash Cup just before that, so they were looking on form. This season, their best Duo Cash Cup placement has only been 21st. They had a lot of sort of like top 3,000, top 4,000 placements together. In fact, Mappy's 2nd best Cash Cup placement was with Diox this season, not even with his duo. So it seems like there's a few problems going on here. Hopefully they can fix it sooner rather than later.
In yesterday's action, we did see 5 duos get victory royales and put their space in the grand finals. But it would be interesting to talk about a couple of duos who perhaps underperformed despite holding on to their place in the upper bracket today. And to be honest with you, the first duo that comes to mind, Miniminer, is Cringe and Volko.
Yeah, Cringe and Volko, we expected big things from yesterday. We hyped them up at the beginning of the show. We talked about their strategy, their ability to play Surge, their ability to win off spawn more often than not, and just their overall game plan was really, really solid going into yesterday. Unfortunately, though, when it came to yesterday, they struggled so much. It seemed like Storm Surge was a big issue for them. Of course, they're landing at Lavish Lair, and so many of the teams down on the south side of the map have those cacti to get some Storm Surge tags, to trade Surge with other teams. They don't have that on the north side of the map, so more often than not, they were just getting caught like we saw Volko doing there, just caught out in the open, which is very uncharacteristic for this Duo 11, because we associate this duo so often with a really, really solid game plan that they can replicate every single game.
Yeah, look, it's no surprise that they struggled with Surge when you watch how some of those games went yesterday. Yeah. I mean, the reality is, if you want to be good on Surge, head south, sit on a cactus. You know what I mean? You're going to be all right. And they have the ability to do that coming out of Lavish there, right? We saw teams from the north quickly looting up and rushing down to the south, right? To be able to do that and play Surge that way. And they have the ability to do that with the ring that's sort of further south from Lavish. So we'll see if they switch things up drastically today.
I want to see another duo switch things up drastically, 11, though. I want to see Reason and Vidal get a victory royale, because this was a duo you had high hopes for yesterday.
Yeah, for sure. It was weird. It felt like a very uncharacteristic day from them, because a lot of the time you look at Reason and Vidal this year, and they're not necessarily going to be, you know, the team that looks the most stacked or looks the most like best set up in any given position to win and be successful. This is a bit of an unfortunate elimination there.
Yeah,
but for the most part, right, Minnie, is part of the genius of this team is that when they get in those situations, they're one of the best teams at getting out of them, and they're one of the best teams at winning when they're a bit scuffed, or, you know, being able to pick a fight and win a fight against a team that has more loot than them. And it just wasn't really clicking for them yesterday. The penny wasn't quite dropping, and so there were a lot of fights where you typically would expect them to win, and they just simply weren't. And it meant that, you know, they couldn't really solidify any good end games.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I was looking back at a lot of their games yesterday night and just trying to figure out what exactly went wrong for them. And it was those fights just outside of Sandy Steps, usually one of them going down, then they had to go and reboot. It caused them a lot of problems later on down the line with Storm Surge, like we highlighted earlier, and it just caused them to have their strategy set back a few minutes with that big reboot. I mean, in fact, they didn't even get a better placement than 17th yesterday, and that was their very last game. So they really need to be starting to make it into those upper echelon of placements if they want to find more success today.
The problem is triple con today, right?
Yeah.
Yesterday they had it, you know, they were a bit con sometimes by Tidy a couple times, like that would split it, but like this time they got Kawama and Rerex there, another duo that, like, it is not an easy situation or an easier situation for them today than yesterday. It's going to be harder, so they're going to have to really step up.
Well, let's see if they can stand their ground, because game one is coming in just a bit. But right now, let's actually check in with Takata and Jacob PR, because I'm interested to hear their thoughts on the action today.
Thank you so much, Frankie. Look, there's a lot of interesting things going on. I know Lev and Minnie were talking about Reason Vidal, but there's also Queasy Vano, or there's Queasy Thomas, sorry. There's Murstache Malibuka, there's Cammy and Seti. These are 4 duos that have won matches previously in day 1 of upper bracket semifinals, but none of those 4 duos won a game yesterday, Jacob, so I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it's just a whole drastic shift in how the lobby is playing out these games. The Cactus were added in this season, and everybody is beelining those like a magnet to a fridge. They run down towards those cactuses using the nitro rings, no matter where they're at on the map. And that's why I like you mentioned Queasy and Thomas from the Class C courts, almost the far north that you can get, and you still find them using those nitro rings to get down to the south side of the map. And that's what we've seen throughout the day yesterday on both of these regions. And I'm kind of thinking whoever can adapt the best will do the best and win one of these games.
Yeah, so it's a similar format to yesterday where winner kind of takes all. You qualify directly to the grand finals if you win one of the 5 matches that are being played out today, but it's a new set lobby. 30 duos qualified from the lower bracket. You got names like Nebs Kiduo, Aquanoa, Mappy Kiro, a lot of big names that are going to be competing today for the first time in the upper bracket. So we'll see who takes it home, but first there's more to break down on the desk, so let's head back to Frankie, Levin, and Minnie.
Thank you very much, guys. I love it when we get to throw to those guys in the pre-show, because they're so much better at explaining this semi-finals format than I am. Now, I wanted to talk to you guys about a piece of kit that we saw continuously during yesterday's games. And it's a classic of the Fortnite oeuvre, shall we say? I don't even know what that word means, but it sounds fancy, so I'm using it anyway. And that is the crash pad. How has this become so essential to everyone's game plan, Levin?
Yeah, I mean, look, we saw it in Major 1 this year, right? The Crash Pad Juniors, we saw how strong they were. They've been added back during the break, so we hadn't seen them before in FNCS, and people just sort of had to pick them up during the break and figure them out. But Minnie, they're pretty easy to figure out, and they're pretty strong, to say the least. It's been good for people because it's a bit of extra mobility outside of just the nitro splashes we've had.
Yeah, you can find a lot of them as well. Of course, green rarity, that uncommon rarity, you can carry 6 of them in your inventory. As you saw there, combining with the Flowberry Fizz can send you so far in early, mid, and late game as well. So they have so many different options. There's so many different times at which you can use that crash pad, and that's why so many teams are carrying them.
It was really interesting yesterday to see Swizzy and Banyak in particular just really exploiting the crash pad to great effect. And I have to say, I think it's one of the reasons those end games were so entertaining. Minnie, do you want to take us through an example of the crash pad in action?
Yeah, well, let's take a look at some early to mid-game examples of how you can use this to your advantage if you're a team doing it. A couple of examples here. Polish doing it very, very well. Gets an elimination, can cover so much ground to get that final elimination. Even Levin being able to dive bomb onto players just unsuspectingly, because you don't get any audio when there's a player doing this to you. So for Artist right there, he had absolutely no idea until it was too late.
Yeah, those crash bombing plays are some of my favorite, right? One of my all-time favorite clips in an FNCS is a clip of Thomas from Major 1 doing it to a player in a bush, right? And it's like he takes out both players and you just can't see it coming if you're the team on the receiving end of it. And so those plays are so prominent in the early mid-game to, again, get yourself some early damage, to find some eliminations, to close out eliminations. It is so strong, but it doesn't end there, right? Because the crash pads still have incredible use come the later stages of the game when the distances are even smaller in the lobby. So why don't we just take a look at some late game examples of where people are using it and where it's really strong.
Yeah, of course. There's a couple of main ways that teams are using them in late game. More often than not, it is just to rotate horizontally to get to the front side of zone. We see Swizzy doing that right here. You don't even have to use Flowberry Fizz sometimes, because sometimes it genuinely sends you too far. So you just have to use the crash pad. But I think one of the other main ways that we were seeing it yesterday in particular, Levin, was to do this. Vertical ability, vertical gain on the high ground team, and just the ability to get yourself up there all the way as quickly as possible. We even saw Chap and Teeny doing it at the exact same time as Swizzy and Vanya yesterday. So it just has so much power, so much potential for teams to take that high ground so easily. And that's a big factor as to why we saw so much mess up there yesterday.
Yeah, that was like the key factor to the end games that we watched yesterday. Everybody just going up with them. You see just a quick look up, Flowberry Fizz, crash pad up. We even saw solos doing it. Malabuka here as a solo, having the power to take down a duo. Now, to be fair, not everyone can do this. This is Malabuka we're talking about here. But again, it's just so easy for him to just go up. You know, Cringe has no idea. Cringe and Vocal are a very good team, but they just ain't got a clue what's hit them. And yeah, we saw so many different people just doing that non-stop. Like, it's why it was really hard for anyone to hold height consistently yesterday. And we're going to see much more of it again today.
I think it's one of my favorite mobility items I've seen in FNCS in a really long time. As I was saying earlier, I mean, it's a classic item. I'm sure everyone has used or come across a crash pad in their time of playing Fortnite, no matter how long you've been playing it for. But the way that it was used so dynamic yesterday was just bringing me life, as I think I actually said on the show. However, we do have quite a lot of duos who have not taken a victory royale so far that we would expect to. Obviously, Burstash and Malabuka, Queasy and Thomas came so close yesterday, as did Cammy and Seti. Do you think it's going to be the big names taking a victory royale today, Levin?
I think it'd be very easy for us to go down that route and say exactly that, just because of how good a lot of those teams were yesterday and how close a lot of those guys came. You'd think that with some of the better teams moving out of the lobby now, it gives them a bit more room maybe to do, you know, and come through and get a win. So the likes of Aviko, Flixie, Swizzy, Vanya, of course. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some underrated names maybe sneaking in, right? I remember this time last major we had Dexy and Eclipse win a game, and you know Dexy was calling it on Twitter beforehand and stuff like that. So maybe we see some teams like that just sneak through and pick up wins as well.
I mean, for Mustache and Malabuka, they're landing a red line break. They're actually contested today by Noah Reddy and Accra, of course, who came up through the lower bracket. So that's an interesting off-spawn battle that I'm going to have my eyes on today, because Accra and Noah Reddy, two very, very experienced players in the EU region. They always have potential to come up with a win. I'm pretty sure it might have been Major 1 when these guys managed to pick up a win in this very same format in the semi-final round of the competition. So I think these guys can definitely have what it takes, because we know Aqua, he's always on height, and at the moment, if anyone can hold high, maybe it is Aqua.
Hey, look, Aqua and Noah Riley both led the lobby in semi-finals for damage dealt. Like, they were number 1 and number 2 for damage dealt in all of the semi-finals yesterday, of the lower bracket specifically, of course. And when I saw that, I said, Aqua in leading damage in 2024. Like, my GOAT is back clearly. So Malabuka and Mustache, they got a good duo on their hands today. We'll see how they deal with that.
Levin, you're my GOAT.
What'd you say?
I said you're my GOAT.
I'm your GOAT?
I'm only kidding. We're going to head over to Carl and Jacob here. I'm not kidding. You're both my GOATs. We're going to head over to our casters now to get our next game underway. First of the day, 6 of the semi-finals. Meh.
Thank you so much, Frankie, even out of the GOAT sounds. But let's focus up. This is similar to yesterday. 5 matches are going to be played out where the Victory Royale takes you straight to the grand finals. If you aren't able to do that, top 20 in upper bracket or even the top 30 from the lower bracket will go to day 3 uppers. Jacob, Minnie talked about it. We have a lot of contestation. 3 duos Mount Olympus, 3 duos Sandy Steps. Let's get right into the first match.
Yeah, you talked about a lot of players off the drop, gonna have some problems very, very early. But one thing that we noticed yesterday, some players, that's a blessing. Others, getting that early Storm Surge due to the fight is absolutely necessary. And with the changes that we're talking about, everybody going south for those cactuses, and that's where a lot of those teams are gonna be stacked up on today.
Yeah, we talked about it. Merstash Malibuca were the most contested duo the previous 2 seasons, I believe. And then yesterday, they were on con and they were having trouble with Surge. So hopefully now that they're contested, they're kind of more back in what they've been used to recently. But like you said, the cactuses have played a huge part in the amount of damage that you need to get to not get affected by that Storm Surge later on. But these early game fights can definitely give you that boost. So we'll see if Clement has what it takes.
Yeah. Already getting a little bit of elevation. The Bubble Shield Junior's out. You don't really see those all too often, but when you don't expect them, they could definitely play a role. And I do like this idea to kind of disengage. You don't want to go ahead and put everything on the line in this moment. Neither one of these teams got a beam, an early shot, anything to start to build that confidence. So now they're just kind of stuck in this situation, forced to make a choice. Do I stay? Do I try to fight? Do I get surged? I have no loot. Or do I go elsewhere to try to get that loot path, to try to get a better inventory?
A lot of choices, a lot of options to make. This is what we were talking about. The Merstash Malibuca up against Noah, Rayleigh, and Aqua. Noah Aqua coming from the lower bracket yesterday. As a reminder, there are players competing in the lower bracket as we see these upper bracket matches. But you gotta be careful as Merstash has already been knocked down. Noah now left with just 31 HP. Can Malibuca clean it up? Yes, he can. It's now a 1 versus 1.
You know, he does have some bandages and the med kit, so 31 HP isn't too much of a worry. It's the time it's gonna take. Aqua on the other side just gets slammed down.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, that shot by Malibuca was insane, and it was so possible because they didn't try to heal up. It was a trade. He thought he had the jump. He went for the 50-50, and Malibuca, that's a fight he wins. And unlike yesterday where he was uncontested, you saw them throughout the day down on Surge. This is how you start the day off hot.
Grab a pillow, grab a blanket. Noah and Aqua are gonna have to take a quick nap before they're ready for game 2. As we switch on over to Vidil and Reason, who were taking some shots. I'm not sure at which duo exactly, but nothing too aggressive so far. They've got a decent loadout. They've got their shields, but still quite a ways to go before they're set for the mid game. Ooh, Della getting cracked alongside for 9, who's gonna box him up now, give him a bit of time to heal up.
Absolutely necessary, because a lot of teams like to rotate through this center of the map. I talked about the cactuses, 3 right there, instant shields. They're going to use that to save as many of the heals as possible. And so for these teams that might not necessarily be there, that's where these early game skirmishes are just a little bit more important and impactful, and kind of dictates the rest of the way you kind of get to play the game. Some might be stuck here, double contested over Pleasant Piazza, and as you can see, other players on the outskirts now moving closer and closer in this direction. There's a lot to be had over here, a bunker, forecast tower, and because it is so wide open outside of those contested fights, there's a lot of room for any teams to roam and steal away that loot.
I'm looking around, mini map, drop map, kind of trying to see what the duos in the surrounding area are looking to do, but it does seem like Pleasant Piazza is quite a popular location in terms of the surrounding areas. You can see how many duos are kind of not necessarily boxed up, but looking for some potential tags before they continue on with their rotate.
Yeah, I think we saw Roban and Fast Roki rotate towards that left side, as Pixie and Yanis trying to make an easier and quicker exit away from Brawler's Battlegrounds. A fight that had all day long yesterday. More and more teams as the day went on moved over in that direction. but they're kind of sticking to that loop path for Hao and Combeck. They're under siege right now. One of them's full, just low HP, and a nice shot by Yanis yet again, backing him down, switching targets, making sure that they don't have a strength in numbers. Neither one of the guys can convincingly help each other up until now. They finally managed to get into the same box, but Pixie Yanis still attacking from two different sides, and they're playing safe. They're backing up, making sure that if they're going to fire a shot back, it's either going to miss or not be a strong shot that they need.
The pressure continues, though. How long will it take until they break? For Hawa, Combeck trying to do what they can to stay up, but Yanis and Pixie are not slowing down. Be careful, though. Shot from a third party. It's going to crack Yanis, now forced to play back. Pop some minis, pop some heals. Will the opposing duo continue the aggression? If you look at the minimap, though, they were quite far away, so even though they're not going to be pushing them, just that little tag, that crack was enough to stop that aggression.
Yeah, now they know the potential for third parties is all around them, which makes it more and more of a risky fight to take so early on in the game, especially for what's at stake. We talk about win a game and you're into the grand finals, but it's 5 games worth of consistency that's going to keep you in the upper bracket side of things. So you don't want to fall in the hole too early on here in game number 1.
CZB and Nathan, who actually finished almost first place, not including the game winners. The only people ahead of them was Vico and Flixie. They were incredibly consistent yesterday, but they just were not able to secure that victory royale. Will that change today? It's the big question. As we take a look at speak of the devil, Flixie and Vico, our #1 duo from yesterday on the leaderboard, who did not secure a victory royale in the upper bracket. Will either of these duos be able to do it today? That's what's interesting to me.
Yeah, they were so close yesterday. Second place in that last game where I believe it was Casper and Prism kind of stole it away. I thought he was healing off for just a couple of placement points to reach that leaderboard spot that we were talking about, but nope. It was just to go to the grand finals. You see kind of what the game plan is all over the map. The unfortunate thing is on this side of the map, there's no cactuses to regenerate a lot of the health. Luckily, there is the underworld, not a lot of teams, so a lot of scraps, fire pits, bandages for them to get back into the game. But the longer and longer you stay on this north, especially northwest side of the map, far away from the cactuses when the zone is pulling, it's going to be much harder for you not only to stay alive, but get surge for later on in the game. So even though we're seeing these two guys here, Faded Pigeon trying to get his teammate back, the job is far from over because now they have to get to zone, get loot, and when they finally get there, they're more than likely going to be below the Storm Surge threshold.
Yeah, it's going to be tough in the feed of a deal also picking up an elimination. But like you said, there are cactuses, there are a lot of environmental mobility options you can choose from, although those are on the southern side of the map. So for Swizzy, oh wow, look at that loot as well. Swizzy Vanyak, I'm surprised they didn't take a victory royale yesterday, to be fair. We'll see if today that will change.
I'm glad you said that. I'm not the only one that's a little surprised they didn't get in, but I think yesterday it was just such an aggressive day throughout the day yesterday, and it got increasingly more and more aggressive, and we saw them kind of lose their loot going down to teams like Snazy and Podesai early and others that kind of really took them off guard, especially with most of the zones going towards the north side of the map, which is unfamiliar from what we saw in FNCS qualifiers 1 and 2. So I think players today might be a little bit more prepared that the zone can realistically go anywhere on the map.
For Strokey and Raban, though, no problem for them. It's more of a south zone. I might have spoke too soon as it could have potentially pulled back north, but yesterday we saw a lot of north zones, which actually kind of works out for the teams that play around the south side. However, I'd like to see a bit more of those south zones play out as we go back over to Yanis and Pixie. Continuing with that aggression. I'm not sure if that was, no, it was a different duo from the original engagement, but they've picked up an elimination.
Yeah, only one, so you don't know what happened to the original guy, but you can see Yanis, Pixie, angles. First shot is going to be a monster one by Yanis. Makes an easy cleanup for Pixie. And unlike the position they were in earlier in the game, they were taking the fight. This time they're at the edge of zone, so they have less and less potential of teams third partying in that direction. So feeling that full confidence to go ahead and take that fight. Cammy and Seti, a team that, when it comes to these FNCSs, I feel like no matter how they're performing day 1, day 2, you kind of expect a team like this to make it through the grand finals at the bare minimum through consistency, because that's what they are. One of the more consistent duos that we have in EU, and they're not known for their aggressive and their powerhouse fragging ability.
Yeah, I think it was Levin that called. He said, Cammy Seti on con today. They're going to take game 1. We'll see if that was true or false. I could be on that boat as well. Flixie, though, put into a potentially dangerous situation as his duo Vico has been knocked down, and it looks like an opposing team is aware of this. Gonna lead them to start pushing towards Flixie, but Flixie's not gonna let that one slide as he goes for the initial connection, getting a huge crack onto Nathan. If he can hold this off like a one-man army and pick his duo back up, it could be huge.
If that was just Tarps and Noya, that would have been an easy fight, an easy decision to make. But as soon as they started to close the distance, in comes Nathan and CZB. In comes another team to over the top of Reckless Railways. And that was the defining moment where he said, I actually can get this revive. Because if they were to push me, it'd be just as risky, if not more risky for them than it would be to go for that single elimination, especially after you got that damage. So a blessing in disguise for Vico and Flixie being able to stay alive. And because of the med kits and everything that they've gathered here from Reckless Railways so far, it's almost gonna look like they never went down in the first place.
You gotta be careful in these upper bracket matches. It is the best of the best on EU competing here. So even if it's a 2 versus 1, it could use so much shield, so many materials, and even time that it might not even be worth it to fully commit to that 2v1. So if you get a big shot connected onto you, like what happened to Nathan, they can quickly kind of decide, you know what, maybe we'll just keep on rotating, focus on the late game instead of just one more elimination.
It just gets tough out here, especially when you're so isolated. And if you have the confidence, like Kaido and Hydro look like they do, they're gonna close in. They know they have a straight up 2v2, nobody really in the distance. They started at full health, obviously in their zone, taking tick by tick of damage, so it's not gonna be that easy, and they are gonna be on the clock, but they have more than enough heals. They find an extra med kit to go ahead and quickly use before they continue on with this fight, so that team below them needs to figure out a way to disengage, because I'm not sure they have the resources, I'm not sure they have the material to keep a prolonged fight like this outside of the zone, even if it's not that far away, because even if you make it there, that's Swizzy and Vanyak in the zone at the edge, ready to keep you out.
You can see the little arrows too, kind of looking back, just waiting for the right moment to strike. Which is why Hydro and his duo partner might want to take a bit more of a wider rotation, especially if they've already seen Swizzy and Vanyak, which I'm sure they have. You can see more on the east side. It looks a lot more free and safer, so they're going to decide to spend a bit more time in zone, but then have more of a safe entry into it. So nice little nitro found. Gonna continue rotating on through.
Well, I see Rift Island there in the distance, just outside of Shipwreck Shallows, which means I think the zone is going to continue to pull towards the south more times than not. That is a trajectory once Rift Island does appear. And so a lot of these teams that are currently positioned towards the north, you need to start thinking that and having it in the back of your mind. It's not 100% of the time, Takata, but a good majority of the time it does pull away from Rift Island. The team's already there, probably can stay positioned, use those rifts, use the launch pad. Everybody else has got to start thinking about the rotations. Getting information here is going to be vital. Even though there is nitro rings around, there's so many teams stacked up on that south side. If that's where you're trying to rotate, you are going to get caught.
Shipwreck Shallows is that new POI too that was just released. It has a little pirate ship on it with cannons and cannonballs that I believe you can even use in tournament formats. So, you know, you said launch pad rotations. Maybe one of these games we'll see someone kind of flying in the air like a cannonball. But it's going to be Nevs and Kiduel that have kind of made their little tiny surge base here. We've seen bigger ones.
This is 2022
throughout this tournament. Yeah, this is kind of a couple years back, I'm not going to lie. But they've got more than enough damage, so no need to waste too many materials, especially with the odds being that they will have to rotate.
They performed well, you know, throughout the qualifiers, but obviously they found themselves in the lower bracket side of things, but they took that opportunity in stride. You know, first place out of 9 games, they have 2 wins, 55 eliminations, so they've already proved they deserve to be here in the upper bracket side of things, but that is only half of the battle overall. Now you need to either get that win Relieve the stress on yourself for Sunday or continue to remain as consistent, which we know is a little bit of a different format here in the finals.
If you're wondering why is Queasy not using his shields, his big pots, Thomas has big pots. Well, you have these cactuses that Queasy and Thomas are boxed around that after a period of time, they will kind of replenish and you can pickaxe them to recuperate more shield. So then Queasy does not want to use the big pots. He can just kind of take a bit more time to use that natural healing and then continue to look for tags. And if he gets tags again, well, he can just go back to the cactus and recuperate that HP once more. But it also means that a lot of the other players in the lobby are using a similar strategy. So the surge amount that you need to get is quite significantly higher than in previous seasons. Faded Pigeon, 47, and his duo partner, Edge of Zone. I wonder how they're going to rotate this.
I'm actually a little surprised that they're almost 400 above the damage threshold. So you got to think of that last fight when we did see H30 go down. All the damage must have been on Faded Pigeon to be able to get it. He gets his teammate back. So you can kind of see it was actually after the revive came in, just 66 above the damage threshold, continuously fire shots. Buzz is going to go down with an instant, separated a little bit too far from Clement, and that's exactly what happens. A second of separation, just an inch too big. A team will notice that and take advantage and try to isolate you just like that.
Ooh, Tijinho has to be careful though. Only 26 above. Has some players in the surrounding area, and look at that in an instant, Jacob. From 26 above to 236 below. Starts sweating in an instant. As you can see, the nitro sprints coming through. Looking to see what opportunities, what options he can find. It's Vanille and Reason on the other side of that door. Knock, knock. Can you connect that initial shot? Nitroing right into the box. I'm not sure if that was the best idea in this moment, as now his duo partner is left alone.
Yeah, I like the idea to get proactive. They have about 20 seconds at that time before Storm Surge activates. Makes it tougher and tougher. They fell so far below that damage threshold, so he felt like it was an all or nothing, but I'm not sure I agree with that one either. And you can see that V's making that decision. 221 below. I cannot stay here and expect to stay alive. I think only 3 players or so do need to go down, though, so he thinks that it might be better to come back for that reboot card now that Zone has pushed all these players away.
Yeah, 6 zone, 50 players being the threshold. There's a ways to go, which is why Scavia is so far below. I even saw CZB in the feed go down, one of our top competitors from yesterday's upper bracket. You can see how much Storm Surge can change these games, as Scavia is going to go right back to Reason and Vidil, but the 2v1, you can see 727, now 938 above the threshold, feeling more than comfortable.
Yeah, he's just looking for scraps that are left by. You can see he's just taking a lot of damage. Storm Surge even looked like he was trying to trade shots. There are cactuses around that area, but you got to imagine how many other teams are boxed up, and there's only so long you can find Storm Surge. He just needs one more player to go down to feel a little bit more safe here in this situation. But Storm Surge going to be reactivating in this next zone, 50 seconds. So he still needs 10 more players from now to go down. He had a sigh of relief for mere seconds before he has to go at it again.
Crash pad getting made or put to good use here. You can see marking where they want to kind of base themselves up. Might even be right beside Thomas and Queasy here. Good pulls from them.
Nice healing right there. Almost looks like they're going to go back to back. They already have him weak. He tried to peek that shot. Great movement by Mappy there to not even take a shot back. Deal a good amount of damage. We talked about them on the pre-show. A team that I think we can expect big things. They have a high ceiling, a lot of potential. But in a lobby that's this stacked and is pulling in towards Shipwreck Shallows, over towards the right, it's not going to be hard because a lot of players were previously positioned here long ago for that Storm Surge around where Rift Island, so 3 zones ago.
Jacob, I have a vision. I have a vision. I want to become a reality. We have the potential of moving zones to pull right through that ship. How crazy would it be if someone makes a high ground play with the cannonball? But I don't want to speak too fast, as Thomas HD and Queasy now have been put into extreme danger. Queasy's been knocked down. The focus is on them. All eyes are on them as Thomas HD is forced to use every last material he has to stay up. It's Merstash Malabuka. It's half the lobby taking shots from every single angle possible. And Thomas HD and Queasy, from looking so healthy and confident for this late game, are gonna go down just in the 7th zone.
That's one of those things where you kind of take a picture and it's just like moments before disaster strikes. They were well above Surge. They've taken yesterday in stride. They've adapted. They've done so much better up until that point, but it's not enough to be up on Surge. Where you position yourself is so important, because there was multiple teams that weren't up on Surge. Then you had Vidil and Reason also shooting off in that distance, and once you become the focus of a lobby, it is so hard to survive, especially with all your resources. So they're going to be down and out. 24 teams still alive, so barely just now placement points are going to start setting in for all these teams and begin to cascade with each and every one of those teams that go down.
8-8 above, forced to pop some minis here. As the zone keeps closing, the pressure is on from the duos that have already based up or even rotated earlier. Nitro Splash going to come through for a bit of mobility here. Just inching their way into zone now. Have made a solid base and want to wait for this metal to fully build before I start making edits and peeking. These players that are rotating in, you do not want to let the focus get back onto you.
You got some mountain ranges to go over. Where this next zone pulls is going to be so drastic. It goes towards the right. I feel bad for the lobby, but it goes towards the south as Seti and Cammy's run here in game 1 has come to an end. Once again, just getting focused out of the lobby. 419 above, though, for Kiro and Mappy. Just like a few other teams in this lobby, all they got to worry about is positioning, getting from point A to point B. But as you've seen, it's not the easiest thing in the world, especially with so many teams all around. Another fight breaks out. Haijo, Kaido on the other side. Kiro, Mappy, defensively success. Take them off, push them back, and are able to stay alive here and get ready for that next rotation.
This is actually going to be a sickening rotation for a lot of these players, especially being on the water. Rakiro finds a nice little fishy. Unfortunately enough, Fast Jokey was able to get out. Good for him, though, as they're now going to pop another Nitro, continue moving on forwards as they're almost into the zone already. Might even play aggressive here as they know Fast Jokey's low. No more shields left onto him. Just one more shot needs to connect, but the more time you take, the more risk of another duo joining the action.
See, he's going to get a decent amount of loot for that. Options for more med kits. They have a flopper as well, and they're just rotating towards the right side of the zone where it's barely opening up, so there's going to be very few people contesting them on that side of the map. So they almost got a free rotation for now, but as you look how messy the high ground actually is, different layers congested with multiple players, and we found one that is still below the damage threshold. They're consistently behind the curve, and they need to figure out a way to push themselves just a little bit further here.
97 below. This is the same duo that was 66 above just a moment ago. How quickly the tables can turn. 6 eliminations as well. 7 eliminations, and they are still below on Storm Surge. How is this even possible, Jacob?
I just got to imagine it's eliminations like that. It's weak players, slivers of HP trying to survive. It's great for your point total for the leaderboard, but it's not good for your damage. And now they're forced to go up and over everybody here on this next rotation, which turns out to be a disaster. He gets dropped, teammate left alone, very little resources, but at least he's able to take his teammates' builds and run with it.
Now left as a solo, trying to continue that elimination trend. They've already secured so many points just on elims, but they still need to get more damage. 4 Nitro Splashes in hand, and look in the clouds, look up above, it's Malabuka and Merstash building up.
We saw him come so close as a solo yesterday before everything came crashing down. Now they have that strength in numbers. Game number 1, it might be all it takes, but you still got some heavy hitters in the way, and one that you didn't expect, Lamine and Flobby on the high ground. It wasn't enough for them to go ahead and keep it. They gave it up, but it could come for a late game high ground retake because they took down high ground. They chopped it down. Timber, everything's gonna come falling.
We didn't have to wait long. The tree comes falling down, and Merstash Malabuka are back on top as they continue to apply pressure below. They cannot let these duos now on second height go for that retake just as they did. Good amount of materials, good amount of loot. Hopefully they can hold on.
Yeah, they made that conscientious decision to disengage from the high ground. It's a decision that is going to pay off for them because they can no longer look up. The team that was there is now being contested by Pixie and Yanis on that middle layer. Vidil and Reason almost all the way down below, but luckily for them, they're keeping their feet out of the mud.
Continuing to tarp a bit above, trying to not get too low of a layer. I'm curious to see if they want to try and make a play here in the late game, but so far medkit's gonna be popped, gonna heal back up. Pixie, Yanis, 6 eliminations as well as they look for more.
Yeah, they're trying to get the piece control. Kiro's just hopping around, trying to stay alive. And he's going to be able to survive just for now. Vico's going down. Cool gets two. Vidil and Reason are trying to smoothly move through these builds. They have their eyes on the high ground. Malibuca and Mustache, you gotta watch out. We've seen so many late high ground retakes, and they do have the Flowberry Fizz, so another one is definitely possible.
This is why they were elevating themselves earlier. They want to see if they can make a play for that high ground, but Mustache and Malibuca, they're aware, but are they enough? As Art Skill now has been cracked down to 7 HP, going for the high ground retake, but can they successfully do it? They might have just done it, Jacob.
Yep, the distraction is in. Malibuca and Mustache have their hands full. And there goes another team. They still have their eyes on the prize. Even if it is 11 zone, they say it's never too late to make a play for it. And they continue to work their way up layer by layer, trading shots with Comeback, even who's up there. And finally, he comes crashing down. Reason and Vidil will not give up. They will not go down, and they will not be denied the high ground.
Reason, are you kidding me? Looking unstoppable, staying ahead of zone. Perfect moment to strike on that high ground retake. I believe it's just a solo above. They should be able to re-heal up here, use the Flowberry, and take the 2v1. It's actually going to be Porhawa who's on top of them. Malibuca as well, left as a solo. The battle for height has not yet finished.
Yeah, and Porhawa said, you know what, that's enough. Let's crash pad to the backside of zone. I think I have enough med kits. He's trusting in himself and his math skills to hopefully survive here. It is the 12th zone. As soon as this one goes all the way to edge, it will close, and whoever's left alive will have to battle out because it doesn't look like there's a lot of heals to go around this lobby.
One more tick in the Flowberry that they can use to avoid the fall damage here. Gonna get chopped down. The deal's still up, but Reason's been lost as he falls down. Vanyak as well dropped the 4 HP. The pressure's on him. Opponents tried to get into the box, but can he escape? No, he cannot.
He gets shut down at the last edge right there. Reason as well. Vidil's stuck by himself, but he has a little bit of elevation to separate himself from everybody else, and even one charge on the Flowberry Fizz. The drop down on Yanis, and he gets a clear-cut win condition now that he has 2 medkits.
But down below, in the dirt, the low ground duo, 10 eliminations already. All they need to do is clean up Vidil.
Yeah, they're trying to chop him down, start the heal off early. Vidil comes crashing down. Even with the med kits, it's not enough. They steal away that game and advance to the grand finals.
What a way to close it out. We had our eyes on height, but what mattered in this last match was securing the low ground and being able to finish it off as a duo, and that is exactly what they were able to do.
And that's the moments that we're talking about. All that high ground is breaking down. 3 teams, 4 teams, solos going up. They think that's the best way to win the game. But you see them down low. Hizix, Buzo, they are just going through. They're taking down every solo that's down there on the low ground, making sure they have materials, making sure that they have heals. Look at their eliminations. Everybody that dropped into their path was sent right back to the lobby. Meanwhile, high ground, they battled it out and they did the rest of the job for them.
Dandy Hizzy were looking unstoppable down below. You can see both of them with 200 effective HP and shield. It wasn't even close when Vidil got chopped down. We also saw earlier on Porhawa. He was on height, but he said, nah, I'm going to crash pad into zone. I don't know how many medkits he had, but clearly not enough to finish off that late game.
Yeah, everybody's going for that high ground, but we got our first team to advance to the grand finals. We're going to go to a quick break so that way we can break all the action, but we'll see you guys on the other side.
and welcome back to FNCS. This is day 2 of our Major 3 semi-finals, and we kicked it off yet again with a lot of action on the high ground. Dandy Pizzo and Hizix were the cheeky champions at the end of the action, and they have booked themselves a spot in the grand finals next weekend. Although, Minimine, I have to say, I didn't have my eye on these two to take it, but they deserve the win.
Well, we didn't see them yesterday. They were in the lower bracket yesterday. They didn't perform amazingly well. They haven't had an amazing season overall. They didn't make a single round 4 in the qualifiers this season either, but they turned up when it mattered most. There was so much action, so much drama all the way up on high ground. This team on low ground just rode out their materials, found eliminations where they needed to, and just waited for everyone else to take each other out. 10 eliminations as well. They did a lot of their own work too. It can't be understated, but really good job from these guys.
Yeah, for a team that we haven't got the chance to watch much of this season, it was quite impressive the way they played low on in towards the end of that game there. So good on them. Again, this is the nature of this format, right? You get teams that sort of sneak in there and they pick up a win maybe where you don't expect, and off to grand finals you go.
A team that was not sneaking around, though, was Reason and Vadil. They were determined, as soon as they found themselves on that low ground, to challenge for height. This was the game plan. They were going to stick to it, 11, and to be honest, they nearly pulled it off.
I mean, courageous, right? Because we saw how chaotic height could be at times yesterday, but they still made it a mission to get involved. And like you said, they started on low. They got a couple refreshes. They thought, okay, this is a win condition. We got some good mats. Let's play for height. And I thought they did it really well, Mini, for the most part, right? They were very patient. They kept looking for beams on Malibuka Mustache. While they were going for beams, sometimes another team would jump up and play height, but they stayed patient. They waited for the opportunity. And when it came, it still wasn't enough because height